I feel young again.
Eugene?
Mother?
What are you doing with my bloomers?
Most cartoons are cute, harmless, and chill, until they drop something so unhinged the network slams the emergency brake.
Go to your rooms forever!
Look, lady, let me tell you something. I make my own rules.
From Dudley Do-Right roasting Smokey Bear so hard the government stepped in, to Pokémon sending hundreds of kids to the hospital, let's dig into the 15 shocking cartoons you didn't know were banned.
We're the Buffalo Gales!
Looney Tunes? Warner Brothers has produced thousands of cartoons over the decades, but there are 11 specific shorts the studio wishes you'd forget entirely. They're called the Censored 11, and they've been locked away since 1968 for one disturbing reason. They're so racially offensive that no amount of editing could ever make them acceptable for modern audiences. These weren't just cartoons with questionable moments. Every single frame was built on harmful African-American stereotypes so extreme that even United Artists, which owned the distribution rights, pulled them from all television packages completely. We're talking about shorts like All This and Rabbit Stew, the only Bugs Bunny cartoon on the bandy list, which featured a hunter depicted as a deeply offensive caricature, or Coal Black and the Seven Dwarfs, a Snow White parody that, despite featuring an all-black cast, relied heavily on minstrel show imagery. What makes this particularly chilling is that these cartoons were mainstream entertainment. Families watched them in theaters nationwide. Children laughed at characters that dehumanized an entire race. When television executive Ted Turner acquired the Warner Brothers library in 1986, he made a powerful statement. These 11 cartoons would never be broadcast under his watch. In 2010, 8 of the 11 were screened once at a film festival with historical context provided by scholars. Pokémon? Anime changed forever on December 16, 1997, even though no one saw it coming. Japanese children gathered around their television sets for another exciting episode of Pokémon. The episode followed Ash and friends as they entered a virtual world to stop Team Rocket from stealing Pokémon from inside a computer system. They were helped by Porygon, a digital Pokémon designed to exist in cyberspace. Everything seemed normal until one fateful scene. When Pikachu used Thunderbolt to destroy incoming missiles, the animators created an explosion using rapidly flashing red and blue lights. The colors flickered at 12 times per second for 4 full seconds. Within minutes, the emergency calls started flooding in. Children across Japan began experiencing blurred vision, headaches, and nausea. Then came the seizures. 685 kids were rushed to hospitals. Some lost consciousness. 2 remained hospitalized for over 2 weeks. Parents watched in horror as their children convulsed on living room floors, victims of photosensitive epilepsy triggered by the screen. Nintendo's stock plummeted nearly 5% overnight. The anime went into a 4-month hiatus. Every previous episode was re-edited to remove potential seizure triggers. The episode never aired again anywhere in the world. Poor Porygon became the scapegoat and was essentially banned from ever appearing in the anime again, even though Pikachu's attack actually caused the problem. This incident earned a Guinness World Record for most photosensitive epileptic seizures caused by a television show. Not exactly the achievement anyone wanted. Dudley Do-Right? In 1960, something extraordinary happened that sounds too absurd to be true. A uniformed U.S. Forest Service official actually marched into an animation studio to complain about a cartoon. This wasn't a joke or a publicity stunt. This really happened, and it resulted in one of the most bizarre bans in cartoon history. Stokey the Bear featured Dudley Do-Right, the bumbling Canadian Mountie from the Rocky and Bullwinkle show. In this episode, the villain Snidely Whiplash hypnotizes a bear named Stokey, a clear parody of Smokey Bear, and forces him to start forest fires instead of preventing them. The chaos escalates when Dudley takes Stokey to Chicago for a change of scenery, where the bear starts a massive fire, and Dudley convinces Mrs. O'Leary to blame it on her cow. A cheeky reference to the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, the U.S. Forest Service didn't find it funny. They saw it as an attack on their beloved Smokey Bear fire prevention campaign. The episode was banned after its initial airing and remained locked away for over 40 years, finally resurfacing on home video in 2005. What makes this ban truly shocking isn't just the absurdity of government officials censoring a silly cartoon. It's that they took a comedic character so seriously that they effectively erased him from television history for 4 decades. Beavis and Butt-Head. It started with a kid in Moraine, Ohio, just 5 years old, wandering around a mobile home and stumbling across a lighter he should have never had his hands on. What happened after that sparked a tragedy that tore through the family's home, leaving nothing but wreckage behind. His little sister, only 2, never made it out. When investigators pressed him on where he learned to play with fire, the answer hit MTV like a gut punch. He pointed to the same late-night chaos millions of teens were laughing at. Beavis and Butt-Head one moment of mimicry, and suddenly a cartoon had a body count, and an episode was about to disappear from television forever. The episode Comedians featured Beavis doing what he did best, obsessing over fire. In one scene, he literally burns down a comedy club. MTV had always walked a razor's edge with this show, knowing its teenage protagonists were terrible role models, but they never imagined a tragedy like this. The network's response was immediate and severe. Comedians was pulled from rotation permanently. It has never aired again. But that wasn't enough. MTV went back through every episode and removed any scene where Beavis said "fire, fire" or flicked a lighter. Multiple other episodes were either banned outright or heavily censored. Stewart's House, Kidnapped, and several others vanished from the lineup. Critics argued that blaming a cartoon for a child's access to a lighter was misguided, but the damage was done. A little girl was dead, and Beavis's pyromaniac tendencies became the scapegoat. The show even moved from 7 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. to avoid younger viewers. South Park. South Park has never been afraid of controversy. The show built its reputation on pushing boundaries and offending everyone equally. But one episode crossed a line that would eventually get it erased from existence, and it all started with a street magician parody. Super Best Friends aired in July 2001, mocking David Blaine's cult-like following. The joke was simple. What if religious figures formed a superhero team to stop Blaine's growing power? The episode featured Jesus, Buddha, Joseph Smith, and other religious icons working together like the Justice League. Among them was Muhammad, depicted as a heroic character with fire-based powers. At the time, nobody blinked an eye. Then September 11th happened. Just 2 months later, the world changed. A few years after that, in 2005, Danish cartoons depicting Muhammad sparked international outrage and violence. Suddenly, Comedy Central realized they had a massive problem buried in their archives. The network quietly pulled the episode from all reruns. It vanished from their online streaming service. When South Park later tried to feature Muhammad again in episodes 200 and 201, the creators received death threats from extremist groups. Those episodes were also banned, heavily censored, and removed from streaming platforms. What makes this particularly ironic is that Muhammad was portrayed positively in Super Best Friends, a heroic figure fighting alongside other religious icons. Tiny Toon Adventures? For years, Tiny Toon Adventures delivered the perfect mix of humor and heart. Then came September 1991, when an attempt at an anti-drinking lesson spiraled into a dark, oddly comedic misfire that shocked both parents and producers. The episode segment One Beer opens with Buster Bunny, Plucky Duck, and Hampton J. Pig rummaging through a refrigerator. They find a single beer. Buster literally grows devil horns and announces to the audience, "In this episode, we're showing the evils of alcohol." The writers weren't being subtle. They were mocking the very concept of very special episodes that networks force them to produce. What follows is deliberately absurd. The 3 underage characters drink the beer in a public park. Within seconds, they're stumbling drunk with 5 o'clock shadows and tattered hobo clothes. They slur their words at female classmates asking, "You babes want to hang?" And here's the part that really flips the table. They steal a police car, drive drunk, crash off a cliff, die on impact, and their souls float up to heaven wearing angel wings. The final line says it all. Buster removes his angel costume and asks, "I hope the kids got the message. So, do we get to do a funny episode tomorrow?" Parents were outraged. Fox Kids banned it immediately after the first airing. The network argued that the satirical tone made drinking look ridiculous rather than dangerous, potentially sending the wrong message to young viewers. Other networks like Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network also refused to air it for years. The episode finally resurfaced on DVD in 2013, over 2 decades later. Cow and Chicken? Cartoon Network in the late 1990s was a wild place. Shows pushed boundaries with absurd humor, that often flew over kids' heads and landed squarely in adult territory. But one episode of Cow and Chicken didn't just cross the line, it stomped all over it with steel-toed boots. Buffalo Gals aired once in 1998 before vanishing forever. The episode featured a gang of leather-clad, butch female bikers who broke into Cow and Chicken's house. Their mission? To chew on carpets. Yes, literally munching on the floor rugs. The gang's favorite sport? Softball, one of the most well-known lesbian stereotypes. The symbolism wasn't subtle. Carpet munching is crude slang, and the writers knew exactly what they were doing. These weren't just rough-and-tumble characters. They were walking, talking lesbian caricatures dripping with offensive stereotypes. The red guy, the show's antagonist, even joins them in their carpet-munching activities, making the innuendo impossible to miss. Parents who caught the references were furious. LGBT advocacy groups condemned the portrayal as mean-spirited and harmful. Cartoon Network pulled the episode immediately after complaints flooded in. It never aired again on any network, anywhere in the world. The episode was excluded from DVD releases and streaming services. What's particularly shocking is that this aired on a children's network during prime afternoon hours. The show's creator, David Feiss, built Cow and Chicken on adult humor disguised as kids' entertainment. But Buffalo Gals proved that some jokes are too crude, too offensive, and too blatantly stereotypical for any audience. SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob is one of the most beloved cartoons in television history. It's innocent, it's silly, and it's been a staple of childhood for over 2 decades. So imagine everyone's shock when Nickelodeon suddenly pulled an entire episode in 2018, 17 years after it originally aired. Midlife Crustacean premiered in 2003 during Season 3. The plot follows Mr. Krabs having a midlife crisis, feeling old and out of touch. SpongeBob and Patrick decide to help him feel young again by taking him on a wild night out. The evening escalates with increasingly ridiculous activities, all harmless fun. Until the final segment, the trio decides to go on a panty raid. They sneak into a woman's house in the dead of night to steal underwear. SpongeBob and Patrick think it's the ultimate rebellious act. They rummage through drawers, grabbing handfuls of panties while giggling. The punchline? They accidentally raided Mr. Krabs' own mother's house, and she caught them red-handed. For 15 years, nobody batted an eye. Kids didn't understand the implications, and parents didn't complain. But then the #MeToo movement happened. Suddenly, a scene depicting breaking to steal women's undergarments wasn't funny anymore. It was promoting invasive, creepy behavior. Nickelodeon made the decision swiftly. The episode was pulled from all television rotations, removed from streaming platforms, and excluded from DVD releases. It vanished without a statement or a warning. Midlife Crustacean was quietly pulled, caught in the shift towards stricter cultural standards and growing conversations about consent, the Powerpuff Girls. The show was famous for its off-the-wall villains and bizarre, dreamlike stories. Yet one episode didn't get pulled for anything on the surface. It was the hidden symbolism underneath that made the network sweat. See Me, Feel Me, Know Me aired once in 2003 before disappearing completely. The episode was structured as a rock opera musical, following Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup as they faced Townsville's villains. Exhausted from constant fighting, the girls encounter a magical gnome named Nomi, who offers them a deal. Give up your superpowers, and I'll eliminate all evil from Townsville forever. The girls say yes, and Nomi spins up a world with zero problems. Everyone's happy, crime's basically extinct. Sounds chill, until it isn't. Townsville turns into a full-on cult, with Nomi acting like the ultimate boss. People worship him, no one thinks for themselves, and the place goes from perfect to low-key dystopian nightmare. Here's where things got controversial. After the episode aired, creator Craig McCracken revealed on social media why Cartoon Network banned it. Network executives claimed that metal beams sticking out of destroyed buildings looked too much like crosses. Worse, one of the hippie characters resembled Jesus. The religious imagery, whether intentional or not, made the network panic about potential backlash from religious groups. No warnings were given to the production team beforehand. The episode was fully animated, scored, and aired before being yanked permanently. For years, fans couldn't watch it anywhere. Eventually, it resurfaced on streaming platforms like Hulu and iTunes, but the ban lasted over a decade. Dexter's Laboratory. A boy genius builds incredible inventions in his secret laboratory. His biggest problem? An annoying sister who constantly ruins his experiments. This premise made for one of Cartoon Network's most beloved shows in the 1990s. But there's one episode that never saw the light of day during its original run. And the reason involves more bleeps than you've ever heard in a children's cartoon. Rude Removal was produced in 1998, but was immediately locked in a vault. The plot was simple enough. Dexter creates a machine to remove rudeness from people he wants to cure his sister Dee Dee of her obnoxious behavior. But when both siblings fall into the device, something unexpected happens. The machine extracts their rude personalities into separate evil clones. These clones don't just act mean. They unleash a torrent of profanity that would make a sailor blush. Every sentence is packed with curse words. Cartoon Network bleeped out every obscenity, but that somehow made it worse. The audio is just constant. Bleep, bleep, bleep.
Shut up, shut up, shut up!
With the clones screaming insults at each other. Kids might not hear the actual words, but they knew exactly what was being said. The polite versions of Dexter and Dee Dee are too timid to fight back, letting the foul-mouthed versions wreak havoc. Network executives watched the finished episode and immediately realized they'd created something completely unsuitable for their young audience. Even with all the bleeps, the intent was clear. The episode was banned before it ever aired, only screening at adult animation festivals years later. Mickey Mouse? The year was 1933, and Mickey Mouse was already a global sensation. Children adored the cheerful mouse and his wholesome adventures. So when audiences sat down to watch The Mad Doctor, they expected the usual lighthearted fun. What they got instead was pure nightmare fuel that would haunt an entire generation. The short opens innocently enough. Pluto has been kidnapped by a sinister scientist who lives in a creepy castle during a thunderstorm. Mickey rushes to rescue his beloved dog, navigating through dark corridors filled with cobwebs and shadows. Then things take a disturbing turn. Mickey discovers the Mad Doctor's true plan. He wants to cut off Pluto's head and attach it to a chicken's body to see if the hybrid creature can hatch puppies from eggs, dismemberment, and grotesque experimentation in a Mickey Mouse cartoon. The imagery gets darker. Skeletons dance in the shadows. A mechanical saw blade whirs menacingly as it descends toward Pluto strapped to an operating table. Mickey is trapped, helpless, watching his dog about to be mutilated. The animation is genuinely terrifying. With expressionist horror techniques rarely seen in children's entertainment, parents complained immediately. Unlike most banned cartoons that took decades to be deemed inappropriate, The Mad Doctor was pulled almost instantly from many theaters. It became one of the first cartoons ever banned for being too frightening for children. Gargoyles, Saturday morning cartoons in the 1990s, were filled with laser guns, explosions, and heroes who never got seriously hurt. Then along came a Disney show that dared to show the real consequences of gun violence, and it was so realistic, so brutal, that networks refused to air it for years. Deadly Force premiered in 1995 during the first season. The episode follows Broadway, one of the Gargoyle heroes, as he discovers Elisa Mazza's police-issued handgun in her apartment. Fascinated by action movies he'd been watching, Broadway picks up the weapon thinking it's just a cool prop like in the films. He mimics his favorite cowboy scenes, pointing it around playfully. Then he accidentally pulls the trigger. The gun fires. Elisa is hit. Blood spreads across her torso as she collapses to the floor, gasping in pain. Broadway's expression shifts from playful to absolute horror as he realizes what he's done. This isn't a cartoon laser that leaves a scorch mark. This is a real gunshot wound, and Elisa is dying. The episode doesn't pull punches. Elisa is rushed to the hospital. Surgeons operate to save her life. She remains in critical condition with tubes and monitors surrounding her hospital bed. Broadway is consumed with guilt, understanding that his carelessness nearly killed his friend. The message about gun safety is crystal clear and devastatingly effective. Too effective, apparently. The episode was banned from reruns for years due to its graphic depiction of gun violence and realistic consequences. Disney eventually allowed limited airings with heavy edits, but the full uncut version remains difficult to find on television. Buzz Lightyear of Star Command? Most people don't even remember this show existed. It was a short-lived animated spin-off of Toy Story that aired from 2000 to 2001, featuring Buzz Lightyear as a space ranger fighting evil across the galaxy. The show was colorful, action-packed, and completely harmless. until one episode depicted something so uncomfortably real that it got banned before most kids ever saw it. Wirewolf told the story of Buzz's teammate Mira Nova, who discovers a powerful energy substance. One taste gives her an incredible rush. She feels invincible, energized, unstoppable, so she keeps using it, and using it, and using it more. What starts as occasional use spirals into full-blown addiction. Mira becomes desperate, obsessive, doing anything to get her next fix. Her friends notice the drastic personality change and try to intervene, but she pushes them away. The episode even shows her father revealing he struggled with the same energy addiction, making it generational trauma. Then comes the withdrawal scene. Mira is shown shaking, sweating, begging pathetically to the villain Zurg for more energy. She's on her knees, completely degraded, willing to betray everything she stands for just to satisfy her craving. Parents and network executives watched in disbelief. This wasn't a vague, "don't do drugs" message. This was a detailed portrayal of addiction, dependency, and withdrawal that mirrored real-life substance abuse far too closely for a children's show based on a beloved Pixar franchise. The episode was pulled immediately and banned from all future airings. Disney wanted nothing to do with associating Buzz Lightyear with drug addiction metaphors. Caillou? Every parent knows this show. That whiny, bald kid who complains about everything and throws tantrums constantly. Well, children loved him. Parents couldn't stand him. But one episode took Caillou's terrible behavior to a level so disturbing that it got banned in the United States for encouraging violence against babies. Big Brother Caillou follows a storyline many families experience: the arrival of a new sibling. Caillou's parents bring home baby Rosie, and suddenly, Caillou isn't getting all the attention anymore. He's jealous, frustrated, and angry that this tiny human has invaded his life and stolen his parents' focus. Most shows would handle this with gentle lessons about sharing and family love, not this episode. Instead, Caillou walks up to his innocent baby sister and pinches her. Hard. Rosie's screaming is horrifying. It's not cartoon crying, it's realistic infant distress that sounds genuinely painful. The animators didn't hold back on making it uncomfortable. Parents watching felt their stomachs drop. This wasn't funny or educational, it was traumatic. The message was supposed to be about learning to cope with change and treating siblings kindly. But what kids actually saw was their favorite character physically hurting a baby and getting away with it temporarily. Child psychologists and parenting groups erupted with complaints. They argued the scene could encourage toddlers to imitate the behavior with their own younger siblings. PBS pulled the episode from American broadcasts and heavily censored it for international airings. The pinching scene was either cut entirely or edited down significantly. The episode became infamous as proof that Caillou was teaching children the worst possible behaviors. Peppa Pig? A wholesome British cartoon about a cheerful pig and her family seems like the last show that would ever face a ban. It's gentle, educational, and beloved by preschoolers worldwide. But one innocent episode about overcoming fears created a genuine public safety crisis in an entire country. Mr. Skinnylegs teaches a simple lesson: not all spiders are scary. In the episode, Peppa and her little brother George discover a spider in their house and react with fear. Daddy Pig calmly reassures them that spiders are harmless friends who shouldn't frighten anyone. The children learn to appreciate Mr. Skinnylegs, and everyone lives happily ever after. Seems sweet enough, at least for British kids, where spiders are more vibes than threat. But once the episode landed in Australia, yeah, the panic kicked in fast. Australia is home to some of the deadliest spiders on planet Earth. The Sydney funnel web spider can kill a child in hours. Redback spiders lurk in suburban backyards. White-tailed spiders cause severe tissue damage. Teaching Australian children that spiders are friendly and harmless isn't just wrong, it's potentially fatal. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation banned the episode completely. It has never aired on Australian television and never will. Public health officials praised the decision, arguing that normalizing spiders could lead children to approach dangerous species without fear, resulting in serious bites or worse. What's educational content in one country becomes a safety hazard in another. Mr. Skinnylegs remains a perfect example of how cultural and environmental differences can turn an innocent cartoon into something genuinely dangerous. Sometimes the least shocking reason for a ban is actually the most logical one. Thanks for watching, fam. Tap like, sub up, And get ready for more stories that should not go this hard.